Please make sure you're on mute.
We'll get started in just a minute. We have quite a few people on the list, so we'll just wait for people to all join us. And looking forward to spending the next 90 minutes together. So just feel free to get settled. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Vanessa. Nice. Howard County. John, San Francisco. Seeing some LinkedIn profiles already. Very cool. One of the best things about these events is we get to meet people from all around the world. Kelly from Ottawa. Hello. Hi, Jessica from Colorado. Yeah, do pop in your LinkedIn profiles so we can start to get to know other people on the call as well. Los Angeles, very cool. I'm in Scotland, so that's why it's a bit dark here, because it's quite late.
It's actually really late there right now. It's a legitimate reason for it to be dark.
The moon is out, the stars are out. Natalie, welcome from New York. Hi, Gina. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Denise from LA.
Okay. I know this is a tight schedule, so I know people are still coming in, but I think, can kick off. So hello, everybody. Welcome to Discover Your Climate Calling. Find where your passion meets the world's needs, presented by Megan Fraser. My name is Valerie Vidala. I'm a volunteer at Work on Climate, and Felix Nguyen Dalton, Work on Climate's Community Programs Manager, is helping with the technical support today. This event will be recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel and website. So just to let you know, today's session will be a mix of presentation by Megan and interactive breakout discussions. So please be ready to engage and share your ideas. For those who are new, Work on Climate is a nonprofit organization with a mission to make climate work mainstream. With a community of over 29,000 members, we regularly organize events like this to help professionals transition into climate-related careers. We are on a mission to transform the talent ecosystem and build the workforce humanity needs to solve climate change equitably and justly. Our goal is to make climate work mainstream, empowering hundreds of millions of people globally with the skills and support they need to use their talent to build climate solutions. If you're not yet a member, please look at our website. It's www.workonclimate.org. Now, I'm very happy to introduce our presenter, Megan Fraser. Megan is a seasoned climate leadership coach with a wealth of experience and insight, and she also serves as a subject matter expert for Work on Climate. We're very lucky to have her presenting for us. Megan, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share my slides. And welcome, everybody. It's so good to have you here. So I'm Megan, as Valerie said, and if you showed up today, it's likely that you are really passionate about finding your place in the climate movement. You want to find a way that feels meaningful, it brings your skills, your experience, your personality to bear, and yet it's likely that you are running into one or more of these three challenges. Firstly, overwhelm. Climate is a massive, complex, very fast-paced topic, and it can feel a bit like you're trying to drink from a fire hydrant, right? You're trying to digest so much of it, and it's very difficult to even know where to start thinking about finding your place. And so maybe you're coming here tonight feeling a bit paralyzed, not sure where to start, not sure where to begin. Or maybe you are questioning whether you do have skills that are relevant in tackling climate, both in paid work in your career, but also outside it. And not knowing how you can contribute can really knock your confidence. And so as a result, maybe you're feeling frustrated, you're comparing yourself to other people, you're questioning yourself. Or perhaps you are feeling unfulfilled. Maybe you're already active in climate. You've got a climate job, or you're active volunteering in climate, you're using your skills, you're leading change, you're in theory doing all the good stuff, but you're not actually enjoying it as much as you thought you would. You thought it would feel energizing, but it feels draining. And so maybe you are wanting a bit of a refresher to fine tune what you're doing and see it through a fresh lens of how to discover your calling and what that looks like. So I see these challenges come up again and again in my work with people, and I see them a lot here at Work on Climate too. Right from somebody who's just finished university and is looking for their fit, right through to a senior executive who wants to figure out how to use the last 5 years of their career in a really fulfilling way. So a lot of us ask this question. It's a really important question. We're in really unique times. And so I'd love to just get a sense of who's here in the room with us, and particularly which of these challenges resonates with you most? If you just pop the number in the chat, for example, if overwhelm is how you're feeling, just put a 1 in the chat. You could put a couple, you could do all three. Which of these are your challenges coming in today? All right, so we've got people 1, 2, and 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, all of them, 2, 1, 2. All right, so lots of overwhelm. Some people feeling a bit of self-doubt, and some others already working in this and feeling like they want to have a bit of a better fit. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. So I've got good news. You're in the right place. We're going to spend 90 minutes tackling this together today. So before we do, just a really, really brief intro as to who I am, whose hands you're in tonight. I'm a leadership coach for climate pioneers, the people who are leading the charge to a better future. And as Valerie said, I've been volunteering at Work on Climate for the last couple of years. Right now, I'm a subject matter expert on leadership, resilience, and mindset for the founders sub-community. But we wanted to really open this event up to everybody in the community of Work on Climate, because it's not just about where do I fit as an entrepreneur, it's about where do I fit generally in this movement. So I'm a founding member of Climate Change Coaches. I was a leadership coach for a few years with Climate Kick, which is the EU's main climate innovation body. I led Scotland's incubator for social innovation a few years back, and I've got about 7 years experience. So I work with this stuff day in, day out, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you. So first of all, I want to get a sense of what emotions come up when you think about a climate calling. What comes up for you? Just pop your answers in the chat. How does it make you feel, that term? Wistful, it's a great word. Meaningful, urgent, inspiring, impactful, passionate, concerned, determined, urgency, hopeful. Cautiously optimistic, impact, stressed. Rachel, I'm glad that you mentioned that because it can feel like a ton of pressure. I've got to figure out my calling. I'm going to talk to that in just a second. Empowered. Fantastic. So let's have a little look about what calling actually is before we actually get started and what it maybe isn't. So don't think of a calling today as a paid job. Don't think of it as I have to find the right role in the right company and that's my calling. Don't think of it as an answer that you have to figure out in the next 90 minutes or that you have to get right somehow. And it's not helpful to think of it as something that's fixed for your whole life. You figure out today, December the 5th, and then you have it kind of setting the course for the rest of your life. Instead, it's more helpful to think about a calling as a portfolio of impact. So it's a portfolio of ways that you contribute to something that you're really wanting to impact. And we'll get into that together. It doesn't just have to come through paid work. It can come through volunteering. It can come through other roles. I'm a coach, but I'm also a parent. And so I see my parenting as part of my calling, because what I want to do is create a better world for my kids. And part of how I do that is helping them to be resilient and engage with the planet and taking action themselves. So it's not just about my career. And I find that it really helps take pressure off what we do for paid work. A calling is a direction to explore. So it's not an answer. It's more like a North Star that can help give you clarity and help you to feel less overwhelmed. You don't have to try and do everything. So it's a direction of travel. And it will be unfolding throughout all of your life. So that's how I really encourage you to think about calling, at least for this time with all of us here online together. And Natalie in the chat says the word calling makes me apathetic because I've had professional callings in the past and burnt out pursuing them. Yes, I think that so often um, the word calling can just bring the underbelly can be burnout. I'm going to talk about joy today as well and why that is so important so that we don't end up burning out. So if this is landing with you, this way of thinking about calling, just put a yes in the chat. Or if you're on board with thinking about calling today like this with me, fantastic. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to suggest a frame to guide our thinking today. And it's this quote by a guy called Frederick Buechner. And he said, "You are called to the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." You are called to the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And I love this framing because if we just focus on our gladness, on what brings us joy, on what brings us what we like doing, we can end up feeling like our life is disconnected from bigger systemic things that we're trying to contribute to. And if we just focus on hunger, we end up getting really burnt out on the needs of the world, on all the problems of the world that there are out there. And I have ended up in this camp quite a lot in my life. I end up so absorbed by the hunger that I don't end up having the resources around me to feel like I can do it in the long run. But the truth is that, the climate crisis is long term, and the likelihood it is in all our lives, it's going to keep on exacerbating, even if we start to turn the ship around. And so we need to figure out a way that we can do this long term in a way that feels energizing, in a way that feels meaningful, in a way that drives impact, and in a way that is really aligned with how we're wired as people, not just in terms of our skills. So your calling essentially is these two parts together for visual learners: what brings you joy and what the world needs, your gladness and the world's hunger. And so another way of thinking about your calling is your highest point of climate contribution. So this wording I've kind of borrowed it and stole it from the book Essentialism. So Greg McKeown is the author, and he talks about your highest point of contribution. I've made it into climate. Your highest point of climate contribution is the unique place that you're able to contribute to addressing this problem in a way that no one else really can. So use whatever framing makes sense for you. And this is how we are going to frame this time together today. So we're going to start by looking at the world's deep hunger. And we're going to look at your North Star. So what are some parameters you might put around the area of climate? And by climate, I mean the entire kind of crisis that links into nature and biodiversity and justice. It's this huge challenge. What's the piece that really draws you forwards? Because if we do that, we'll help move you from overwhelm into more focus. Put some parameters around the thing that you actually want to be tackling. And then we're going to look at what really brings you joy and flow as an individual. And that will help shift any self-doubt or self-questioning into a sense of alignment, because we'll help to ground you in really what you feel aligned with already. And then we're going to connect the dots between hunger and gladness. And I'm going to ask you to think about a specific action that you can take in the next 7 days to explore this further in really practical terms, so that you can take what we talk about today and put it out into the world. And to do that, what I would love is to start to dilute some of the unfulfillment and start to anchor into joy, some of the things that bring you joy and bring you flow in life. So North Star, connecting to what brings you joy, and then we're going to connect the dots into actions. So my hope is that in an hour and a quarter, you leave here with more focus, more alignment, and more joy than you came in with, in whatever proportion you need right now. How does that sound? If that sounds good to you, just put a yes in the chat so I know that you're tracking with me. Okay, cool. All right, let's do this. So a little bit of housekeeping, very boring, but very important. Um, in terms of the session today, we've got quite a lot to get through. And so we're going to be using the chat for any questions and interaction. And Valerie is going to be helping with any questions that I miss in case I can't multitask with slides and chat. We're going to have two breakout rooms. And for those of you who'd like to know what's happening ahead of time, we're going to have two parallel structures. So you're going to have two breakout rooms with the same people in each room. So you'll have a part one of a conversation and then part two of the conversation. So you get to know people a bit better. Let us know if we can make this more accessible for you. You can either DM Valerie, whose screen name is Work on Climate Team, or you can DM Felix to make this a better experience for you. And my invitation is also to be curious. Don't worry about finding the answer. This is just the first step of the journey together. So let's start by looking at the world's deep hunger. This is what all of you are deeply aware of if you're here today. And we're going to do an exercise to help cut through the noise of the climate crisis so that you can begin to identify particular problems or challenges that you feel especially energized about tackling or especially curious about tackling. And most of the people I work with are highly purpose-driven. And so you want to change things because you see how tremendous these challenges are that we're up against. But what I've noticed, both in my own work and also in work on climate as a volunteer, is that it can be tough to sift through all the different areas that you could be tackling. Because as soon as you start to pull the thread on one of them, you notice how it's it's completely this big ball of wool that's all interconnected. And everything matters. All these issues matter, and all of them needs hands on deck to tackle them. And so the better the sense of direction that you have around the challenges that you want to be a part of tackling, the more alignment you'll start to experience because you'll be able to say no to things that definitely aren't kind of in that wheelhouse. So for this exercise, all you need is a pen and paper. We're going to be starting by doing some solar reflection. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to share in a breakout room some of what you've learned today, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And so it's very simple. We're going to play together. I'm going to ask some questions and you write down your answers. And the questions will also be on the screen if you'd like to have them written down in front of you. Bullet points are totally fine. You don't have to write an essay and nobody's going to see your answers apart from you. You can even draw your answers, whatever your brain likes to do. And then keep writing until you run out of things to say. I'm looking for kind of stream of consciousness, whatever comes to mind here. And if a question I ask doesn't resonate, just write what comes to mind. There'll be about 7 questions altogether. You can't get this wrong. And just stay on mute to help you really stay focused and grounded in your own self as we're doing this. So the first thing we want to do is activate the parts of our brain responsible for creative and exploratory thinking. And so whatever you're doing before you came into this workshop, maybe just put it out of the room metaphorically and just be here now. It is a gift to yourself. And we're going to start with a few grounding breaths. Just allowing your body to slow down. Just notice what it feels like to have your back straight, your head straight in your shoulders. Just take 3 really big, deep breaths in your own time. Feeling your chest expanding as you breathe in. And your shoulders dropping as you breathe out. Maybe these are some of the biggest, deepest breaths you've had a chance to really feel all day. Really connect with the sensation of those breaths. And see if you can connect with the part of yourself that thought, I'm going to go to that workshop. There's something about me that wants to explore this. Connect to the part of yourself that is all too aware of the needs of the world. And we're going to explore that a little bit together. The first question I have for you is when you open a newspaper or a news site, what type of stories are you drawn to first? What do you click on? What do you gravitate to? Just jot down, what are you naturally curious about? And then on the same topic, what type of news stories stay with you for days or weeks? What topics get lodged in your mind and you can't forget about them? What was the latest nonfiction book or documentary or podcast that you couldn't stop recommending? What was the latest nonfiction book or documentary podcast that you couldn't stop recommending and talking to people about? And what was the topic? To what causes have you donated your personal time or money? Maybe think about the last 12 months. Which charities did you support? Which charities' newsletters do you always open? If you won the lottery and you could give $1 million to charity tomorrow, what cause would you really want to help? Who would you give that money to? What specifically do you wish more people or organizations cared about and acted on? What specifically do you wish more people or organizations cared about and acted on? And try and get as specific as possible. Or a way to rephrase the question might be, what behavior do you specifically wish that you saw more? And lastly, for now, what type of world problems tend to get you really angry or upset? And again, try and get as specific as possible. What topics feel like they press buttons for you or trigger you? Just take a minute to read through what you've written and perhaps circle any patterns that you notice, any words that stand out to you. If you're on a computer, maybe you want to highlight them, make them in bold. Are there themes that come out in more than one place? And what outcomes, causes, or demographics? Is it a people group? Is it a species? Part of the world? Problems? Especially seem to matter to you? Which ones tend to grab your attention? And as best you can, complete this sentence. This is totally messy first draft, but the deep hunger that moves me most is dot dot dot, just to give it a bit of a framing, with the enormous caveat that you may have more exploration to do. What's your sense as we dip our toe in the water of what moves you most? And now I'm going to invite you to go into a little group of about 4 people and do 2 things. Share whatever that sentence is, even if it's really messy, first draft. What are you learning? And what are you learning about yourself? So share the sentence. What are you learning about yourself? You'll have about 2, 3 minutes each. You're going to be in this group again in the next round. So you'll get to continue the conversation when it comes to the next exercise. So just take a moment to think about what you want to say. And Felix is going to open up breakout rooms. Thank you so much, Felix. All right.
How's your back?
It's okay. Thanks for asking.
I'm worried about you.
It's a
You
bit
sound great,
sore.
though. You sound
I think it's the we're done timer noise. Yeah, that's what that was.
Hmm. Hello. Welcome back. It's nice to see some faces. We didn't see some faces before you all went away. It's nice to see who's here with us. We would love to hear just a little bit about what you talked about, perhaps some key takeaways or insights, either about what you're learning about that deep hunger that draws you or about yourself. Just pop in the chat anything you're willing to share with the whole group. What are you learning from this first little exercise and discussion together? And if you're up for unmuting as well, we can also hear from a couple of people. What are you learning? What did you learn so far? Environmental communications, key to changing attitudes and habits. Sonia, very wide spectrum of topics and answers. So I'm curious to see if or how I can combine them. Scott reflecting on how it's a joint effort. We've all got our parts to play. Yeah. I once did a session on the hero's journey, like the hero single, going through all these obstacles, and people just didn't feel like it was relevant anymore in these times. It's not about the hero; it's about the pack of people together. All of us can none of us can do this single-handedly. Emily, yes.
Yeah, Megan, thank you. I wanted to echo that and also just say that our breakout group was saying too, there's such a wide swath of problems and solutions for us to each explore, but it's overwhelming at times. And so we thought instead of going deep into one specific area, perhaps, our hunger is kind of finding ways that we each as a community and a growing big community of people who care about the climate and about kind of the one planet we have can do little things to make an impact, right? Because we feel like there's a helplessness, but there's also potentially a lack of education or a lack of care and getting turned off by things that are climate solutions or billed as climate solutions. But just feeling like we can empower one another or to find some little thing that we can do hyper locally and kind of gather, some momentum and some positive energy towards, little things that can help, whether that's just finding ways to think of end of life for consumer goods or helping out neighbors during times of need and emergency response things. There's so many things to do, but just little bite-sized solutions felt a little bit more palatable for our group, and it doesn't feel like we're trying to boil the ocean.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that, because some people might feel really energized by the local stuff and how can we connect with other people in our area. And others might feel more connected to other stuff that's happening further away. But I think a great resource to tap into, if you're not already, is there's lots of geographies in the Work on Climate community, which Felix can talk more to, but there's lots of ways that you can connect there as well with people who are in your area. Thanks for sharing, Emily. Yeah. Some themes coming in, protecting habitats and animals, consumption, plastics, help people to care more about climate and make change. How do we motivate people? Justice, undoing the crimes of the past, stop repeating history, indigenous knowledge, marginalized groups, direct mutual aid. Building the community as a whole planet, says Franz. Reconciliation of interest feels like the deep hunger of the world. Love that. But no idea so far how I can contribute to that. And that's okay. It's okay if you're not quite sure. And it may not be a particular job. It may be a whole series of components that create that portfolio. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Natalie, I was really reminded of my deep hunger for working on issues at the intersection of marginalized communities and environment. So notice as well, even if these things still feel quite big, there's a whole bunch of things that maybe you're not looking at. Like I was reading yesterday about, what's it called? It's a type of fishing where they do a lot of kind of deep sea dredging, and it's incredibly damaging to marine life. If that's not on your list, that's not something that you're thinking about. Or mental health of children, or protecting turtles. Like there's so many things that you wouldn't even have mentioned. So it's helpful to also notice, actually, I have got some parameters. They still might feel quite big, but I am not pursuing everything at once. And there could also be particular sectors, maybe policy and politics hasn't come up for you as much, but actually empowering people at the individual level has, or working together with businesses, or the psychology of change. And then Izzy, varying levels of work within every industry. For example, you can find hands-on or further back, running a farm service, being a non-profit that may assist in finding grants or volunteers. Yeah, I love that. So kind of mapping out the system and who are the players in the system and where might you feel like you fit. And there's so many ways to contribute to that particular cause or hunger. Politics and business, very important, but very frustrating. Yes, they're big, sticky problems, and it's hard to know exactly how they're going to be addressed. But what I do believe is that there'll be lots of different points of contribution from all of us that are going to help to make an impact. So we're going to do a very similar exercise now, looking at it from the other angles. Now you have a sense of what to expect. We are going to spend some time in reflection mode and then back into your breakout groups. And then we'll think about, well, what might we start to connect in terms of the dots of the exercise. So let's share again this nice, this little image. It's a reminder to me of just a way to take a breath and be grounded again. And so just take a few deep breaths, reconnect with that part of yourself that sits at your core. Just notice the quality of thoughts that you have after that breakout room discussion, after that reflection. Whether they're clear, jumbled, racing, distracted. Notice many emotions coming up. And anything happening in your body, any parts that feel especially tense. You might want to stretch them out a little bit. Not trying to change any of this, just being with this experience, getting really curious, staying perhaps able to hold this lightly as we explore this. And whenever you're ready, just get out your pen and paper or your document in your computer. We're going to shift gears now and think about what it is that really lights you up, because every single one of you is wired in a very particular way. And so taking our focus away from the world and onto flow. First question is, what did you enjoy doing most of all when you were a child? What did you do for fun without being prompted? What brings you happiness every day? And is it something that you do or that happens to you? What brings you happiness daily? Is it something that you do or that happens to you? When do you feel most fulfilled and in flow? When do you lose track of time? What are you doing? What have you been paid for that you also really enjoy? We're not always paid for or good at things that we also enjoy. So where have those two things met in the past? What have you been paid for that you love to do? What would you keep on doing even if you had all the money you need? So if you didn't have to earn your keep, what would you do anyway because you love it so much? And then lastly, what would be your dream role supporting your dream cause? Don't think too much about whether it's paid or unpaid. Just think if you could get placed into your ideal role supporting your ideal cause, what would that be? We talked a bit about, being right at the coal face, so to speak. It's not a very good metaphor for climate, but would you be that right hands-on? Would you be working with people? Would you be overseeing things? And how much time alone or with other people would that entail? And again, you may have multiple dream roles and multiple dream causes. Just pick one. They're all data points as opposed to tick boxes. And then again, just take a minute to read through that set of answers. And as we did before, circle the words that stand out or put them in bold. And notice any patterns, things that have come up that bring you energy, that bring you flow, that come really easily to you. And then just complete this sentence. I experience deep gladness when I ... And if deep gladness doesn't feel right, maybe it's flow or joy or fulfillment or whatever language works best for you. And again, rough draft. And the reason that we're spending time thinking about joy is because when there's a particular cause you care about, there will still be multiple ways to contribute to that cause. And I'll give you an example from my own life. So I've got two kids, they're 1 and 4. And even though I was already working in climate for a while when I had my kids, becoming a mother really brought the whole climate crisis home. And I became, I kind of like woke up to it in a new way. And so that took me into working for volunteering for a parent activist group here in the UK. And there were lots of ways to get involved. And I was really passionate about working to help to amplify the parent voice in climate change. It felt very meaningful, but I wasn't really sure what my role could be in the organization. And then a opportunity came up to be part of the organizing team. And I thought, that's a job that needs done. I could do that job. But when I thought about the stuff that brought me gladness and flow, it wasn't organizing. It wasn't project management. It wasn't kind of organizing marches, that kind of thing. So even though I could have done it and it would have been something worthwhile, I chose not to because I knew that the way that I'm wired is not a way that lends itself to being in that kind of role. And so instead, I volunteered to run workshops for them because I find workshops very flowy. And I feel very, very at ease running this kind of thing. And so that was a really helpful distinction for me to think, well, is going into this role going to feel energizing and fulfilling and build up my battery whenever I go home? Or is it going to feel like it's something that I have to kind of push at? So if you think about your dominant hand, I'm right-handed. What we're looking for in our climate work, climate volunteering, whatever climate action you're taking, is something that's like your dominant hand. So writing with your dominant hand. If I were to write my name with my left hand, I could do it, but it would feel like I have to constantly think about it more. And so that's why tuning into what naturally lights you up and fills you up and gives you life is a really helpful clue in terms of the ways that you can uniquely contribute. My highest point of climate contribution is not leading an activist group. Even though that's a very worthy thing to do, it's just not me. And so that's an example to help perhaps bring this into life a bit more with the hunger and the gladness. So as we did before, we're going to go back into the same breakout rooms, so same group of people. And I'd like you to do the exact same thing, share that sentence, what brings you deep gladness, and what else are you learning about yourself and about how you're thinking about this whole question of how these two things come together. So 10 minutes, same breakout room, and then when I come back here, I'm going to think about how do we start to connect those dots. But Felix, over to you. You've got them ready.
Okay. I think that
I'm really curious if they hear that music
I know.
and break
I
up.
didn't hear it the last time. I just heard it this time.
I think they might actually. I'm not sure. The funny thing is I actually thought that was you playing that music and I was like, "Oh, okay, Megan's got like waiting music. Like maybe I should like." But then I realized it was a timer. I just hadn't
Wow.
previewed the timer noise because I was afraid that it would start playing for everybody. Welcome back, everyone.
So we were just talking when you were all out. Did you hear a little bit of music when you had
Like
like
a
10
little
seconds
like
left?
jazzy, like da 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 da. Like I don't know.
Okay. We heard a little jazz music, and it's the cool timer
Yeah.
that Felix set up. We wondered if it was also in breakout rooms, which would be cool.
No, it must only be in the main session. Shucks. Maybe I'll find one that actually goes to the breakout rooms.
So yeah, Felix does rock. So tell us in the chat what did you learn from that conversation in terms of what brings you flow? Were there particular insights about actually this really doesn't feel like a fit for me, and that's why it has felt like it's a bit sticky? Or were there patterns that you noticed? Go ahead and share and chat with us. What are you noticing about your flow, your gladness, fulfillment? Connecting with others is powerful. Networking. Yeah, Emily, I wasn't sure whether to do breakouts. It's like I have to do breakouts because people want to, it's not just about the content. You have to talk to each other and network and get to know each other. So it's one of the most powerful things about these kinds of events. We've talked about how much our joy comes from connecting and building with others. My gladness was not what I expected. Izzy got a surprise. Very cool. Our group likes working with teams to solve difficult problems. Love that. Already you've got some parameters in there. John, I like making sausage, creating teams, companies, solutions, and want to make this happen for the planet. Brilliant. Lorelei, thanks, Franz and Sonia. You made my day better. Sounds like you had some good conversations. And Patty, corporate jobs focus too much on profit. So looking for something that's a bit of a different mix. It feels a bit less solely profit driven. A lot of climate roles, especially creative ones, will be created in the future. How to use our time leading up to that point. Networking, resource sharing, taking workshops. That's a great question, Avalon. I mean, if I'm honest, I didn't even know coaching was a job when I left high school. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I don't know, looking back, I prepared for coaching through doing all kinds of other things. And I kind of followed my nose. And I followed what brought me interest. And I thought about being a therapist. And I volunteered at crisis and suicide network line. And I took calls. And that showed me I didn't really want to work in therapy, but I wanted to work with people, helping them. And so it was just kind of a step by step like that, finding a way that that was an interesting career path for me. But I think it will be pretty similar in climate. And feel free to jump in your own responses in response to Avalon's question in the chat as well. We've only got 15-ish minutes left, so I want to make sure we have some time to connect some dots as well. And again, this is going to get some seeds planted for the future rather than working it all out. for the end of time. But I want you to draw a couple of columns, really quick and dirty. And in these columns, jot down the high-level themes that you came up with in your reflections. So, for example, factory farming, Gen Z mental health, climate education. These are some examples that maybe feel like, oh, these things I kind of have clusters of interest around them. And in the column to the right, what were some of the themes that brought you deep gladness? Maybe organizing others, creating art, maybe raising your kids. It doesn't have to be paid work or, professional. Just jot them down so that in 2 columns, high level. When you've got those jotted down, draw lines, like when you were a kid and you had to help the bear find the cave. Draw lines to connect specific combinations across the divide that feel interesting or energizing. You don't even know how it's going to work out, but which feel interesting or energizing. For example, let's say factory farming just feels like it's just really lying heavily on my heart, and I just want to do something about it. And I get a ton of joy from raising my kids. Or maybe I could take my kids to a local co-op. We could start picking our own food, and we could make delicious plant-based meals together. Or maybe we could go and find a local farmer with free-range eggs. We get our own chickens if we want. And I can teach my kids to look after these birds. Or maybe if climate education really matters to me, I could think, well, my local community hasn't got anything like this, but let me organize other people and we can try and get a little group together to put together a workshop for this particular demographic. Or maybe Gen Z mental health really matters to me, especially as it's being impacted by the climate crisis. Love creating art. Maybe I could create some illustrations talking about my own relationship with climate change and using them as invitations online to have conversations around how we can look after ourselves. Or I can partner with a local climate cafe and I can think, can I create art for you to help, jog some thoughts about how people are experiencing their climate anxiety? It's just about thinking through what this could look like in practice. And just to spitball some more ideas. And as you're doing this, start to list out what might this look like. Let's think about some examples. Let's say you really care about the plight of sea creatures, and what brings you gladness is time with your family. You could all go to a local viewing of something like I don't know, Seaspiracy or something, and then have a meal around it and talk about it afterwards. Or if you're deeply moved by plastic pollution and it brings you deep gladness to be outdoors in nature, buy a litter picker and go to some litter picking on your weekend with a friend. It can be anything from local and individual to, global, writing to your representatives, organizing other people, initiating something. And think about what you could do the next 7 days to explore this particular intersection more. So maybe on this slide, there's one particular thing you want to explore, one particular hunger, gladness intersection. So we're narrowing down a particular avenue to take. And depending on your capacity before the holidays, this could be anything. This could be, I'm going to write a post online about the dots that I'm connecting. Or I'm going to write it in my newsletter. I'm going to email somebody. I'm going to volunteer somewhere that has an opening, a local animal shelter. Maybe you want to volunteer here at Work on Climate. You want to volunteer with foster kids. I was talking to Felix about in the break. You want to join an initiative, give money, offer your skills pro bono. Maybe you want to hire someone. You want to have a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn or in your community group or your neighbor. You want to find people in your local city to connect with. Maybe you want to ask somebody for help. I'm feeling kind of stuck. Can you help me think through this? Maybe you want to make a lifestyle change when it reflects your values. Maybe you want to find an ally or community because, as we've seen in the chat, so much of this work needs to be done in community. And Felix just posted, yay, volunteer position after the session. Yes, fantastic. So this is a great place to volunteer. There are about 60 of us who are volunteering. And when you've had an idea, just share in the chat, what are you going to do in the next 7 days to explore this? And again, it could be anything from I'm going to have a conversation, I'm going to send an email, I'm going to watch a YouTube video, to I'm going to go sign up to be a volunteer, or I'm going to try and find a co-founder, or I'm going to go network in this particular community. I'm going to journal more about these questions. I'm going to find out what's already happening locally or in the cause that I really care about supporting. Lorelei, journaling. Gina, journaling. Fantastic. I mean, this is really, this workshop is kind of like a seed, right? And if you journal, you'll put more water on it. They're questions we don't often get the chance to ask ourselves, or to really be able to, zoom back and ask ourselves these things. Gina might contact Caltrans about all the trash on the side of the nearby freeway. I love that. Research volunteer opportunities in my community, as well as national companies with local outreach efforts. Fantastic. Reaching out to old mentors who work in the clean energy industry and ask their advice on how to get involved. I want to ask someone at a local nonprofit about how to volunteer. Fantastic. I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter about this process and how important she is making things better. And I'm also going to share some resources in this next slide, and that will be potentially other action you might take. These are some fantastic books. Impact, step-by-step plan, is written by two co-founders of a nonprofit, and they take the exact same portfolio approach I've talked about today, but they have a whole book on it. So how can your work, your money, your volunteering, your lifestyle, your memberships of different things all together create a portfolio of impact that's geared towards a particular cause or constellation of causes that you particularly want to support. So we've just skimmed the surface. That's a great resource to go into more depth. Ikigai, you've probably heard the term Ikigai. It's a little bit like today's workshop, and that's a book that goes more into that. And then there's a really helpful article. These slides, I think, are going to be sent out, Felix. And these are all hyperlinked, but that third one there is a really wonderful distinction on helping, fixing, or serving, which I wanted to talk about. I didn't have time, so I decided not to ram it in, but essentially thinking about serving these causes rather than trying to help or fix them, which is a very different energy and dynamic how we think about them. Izzy's going to research if I can work towards an ocean-related role while living landlocked. Fantastic. And Izzy, you can think about hashtag open door climate. It's a great resource for you to be able to look at other people working in ocean, sea stuff, and see who's living where. And they have an open door policy where you can book a 20-minute slot and just pick their brains for free. That's a great resource. Open door climate. And Brittany, deeply moved by innovation that does not cause harm or reduces harm. We'll look through the articles on your notes app and contact some other people or works mentioned in them. Fantastic, because all those notes often just get saved away, don't they? We never look at them again. So thank you everyone for being with us today. And I hope that this has started to plant some interesting seeds about how you can start to narrow in the parameters of this massive, complex problem that we're all trying to tackle together, but also really importantly for you to think, well, how might I actually find a way to do this work that feels like it's playing to my strengths and how I'm wired so that it can fill me up for the future. And Felix already put in the chat, Ben is another expert working in ocean space. So that's for you if you want to check out. We've got fantastic experts who offer their time for free. So do feel free to take advantage of that. And any questions that you have for me, this is my email, Megan@FutureLed, and I also run free office hours. I work on climate. So I will stop sharing my screen and then I will let the team close.
Thank you, Megan. That was amazing. And it looks like people got a lot out of it. So very much appreciate it. We just want to put up a QR code. We would very much appreciate if you could fill out this very brief event survey. It only takes a couple of minutes. It really helps us to make future events even better. Thank you again, Megan. It's late for you. Really appreciate you doing this for us. And thanks, Felix. And best of luck, everybody, on your climate career journey.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Megan, I just really want to say thank you in person. I'm an hour ahead of you sitting in Germany, and I dialed in really worried that I might not have the energy for this. And I actually leave this workshop with more energy than I entered it with.
Wow.
And that's amazing. Lovely. So thanks so much for guiding us through these questions.
Well, thank you for coming from Europe. It was quite late for Europeans, so I'm delighted that you're going to have with more energy. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, thank you.
Very sweet.